It, as a matter of fact, I did, Steve.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, so I'll call it being Wednesday, March 29th, 2023 at 6:30 PM and having quorum, I'll go to item 1, call to order. And before we call to order, I'll just read the modified, because I don't think it's a governor's order anymore. I think if we wanted to, we could meet in person. So for this meeting, we are meeting remotely.
Well, we're still under the governor's order. It expires on the 31st, but I can.
All right, yeah, so we're operating under the governor's order still, imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Bridgewater Planning Board will be connected via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of the members of the public are permitted. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. The meeting is being recorded. Within 48 hours, we'll post a link of the recording on the town's website and our social media pages. I'm Patrick Driscoll, the chair. Mr. Raymond Dejemian is with us this evening. Ms. Astrid Rojas, Mr. Michael McDonald, Mr. Stephen Geller, and we have two associate, Mr. Michael McDonald, vice chair, and Mr. Stephen Geller. We have two associate members, Ms. Astrid Rojas. Oh my God, I'm reading
No.
off. I'm sorry, Mr. Tagali and Ms. MJ Spagone. The following Bridgewater Town staff will also be participating remotely. Mr. Bob Rulli, the Community Economic Development Director. Mr. Shane O'Brien, the Town Planner. Mr. Greg Tansey, the Town Engineer. And Mr. Stephen Solari, the Building Commissioner. At this time, everyone's mics are muted. Board's mics will be unmuted through the whole meeting, and as items appear on the agenda, the project's representatives' mics will be unmuted. If the project is a public hearing and allows for public comment, we ask that you use the chat feature to ask your questions by listing your name, your address, and your question. The host, who's Mr. O'Brien, will recognize the questions in order, and you can also use the raise my hand feature in the participant menu. You'll be unmuted when the host recognizes you. Again, please state your name, address, before asking the question. If you're on the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. And I apologize for mixing up some of those names. I hope it was clear. I'm working off an old list. I thought we would not be meeting remotely after March 12, 2020, but we still are, so I apologize. Next item on the agenda, we have a continued public hearing, item 2, 0 Jasmine Way, map 72, lot 105. This is proposed by MSF Property Holdings, LLC. The site plan review under section 10.6 of the Bridgewater zoning ordinance. This is continued from January 18th, February 15th, and March 1st. And Mr. O'Brien, I know we got a memo from you and an updated plan set that I saw that it addressed the changes, the landscaping, the curbing that Mr. Geller commented on, and a few other things we asked for. So I can turn it over to you and the project representatives.
Sure. Just a quick note. Mr. McDonald is not here yet. He stated that he would be running late, as well as Greg Tansey is unable to attend this meeting, so Greg will not be here. But we do have Josh White from JDE Civil, and I'm happy to hand it over to him to address the changes made to the plans that the board received recently.
Thanks, Shane. So yeah, as the chairman mentioned, there was a couple minor changes to the plans that were commented from the town engineer. Just minor notes that we had on the E1 design, the sewer design, and stuff like that. Just minor notes of pipe sizes, and that all have been updated on the plans that you have. And we also, at the request of the planning board, updated the landscaping. So we replaced all the Bradford pears that were proposed. We've got red maples going in, and we've also split up the amount of the blue spruce that we had on the residential abutter line, and we've got blue spruce and Wichita blue junipers proposed as well. There'd be 12 of each of those. Yeah, so on the bottom property line, we alternated the blue junipers and the blue spruce. They're both similar growing patterns and overall heights, so they'll blend in together. And on the right side of building C, which is the first building as you come in, we did add some landscaping on the end of the building. And that's basically all the changes that we made from the last meeting that we had with you guys. And I think that if there's any other comments, I'll address them now.
I have a
Are there
quick
any,
question.
are there any comments from the board? I know Mr.
Just
Gelli.
quick- Just a quick question. I can't find it now, but I remember in looking at this, there was somebody made a comment about were all the buildings going to be the same as the one that was shown. So am I making that up, or can anybody help me with that?
They're all going to be the same.
Design, all the
Um,
same design as what the one that's shown, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other board comments or questions or staff comments?
Do we have anything from town engineers saying everything is fine?
Well, based on the information that I provided, I haven't received anything from Greg, but as recently as the previous iteration of this project, Greg said that all of his comments have pretty much been addressed. The only additions that the applicant has made, as previously mentioned, is the changing in the landscaping and the addition of the curbing on the right side of the project, which shouldn't affect drainage, nor should the tree plantings affect anything in terms of what Greg's initial review was. So all the drainage changes and sewer changes have been made in according to Greg's comments.
Mr. Gelli, have you had a chance to review the changes in the landscaping? Are you-
I did, and I know it wasn't the last meeting, and I do appreciate the applicant taking my comments and going with it, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Problem.
Mr. Chair as well, Mr. Geller did file a Mullen rule and that was given to the town clerk's office, so that's all set as well.
All right. This is a public hearing still, so before we go any further, is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? If there's no more town staff or planning board member comments? So again, any members of the public that would like to speak on this project, 0 Jasmine Way? Any members of the board or staff that would like to speak on this project?
Just wanted to let the board know I sent an updated memo, just stating the changes that were made to the plan. From my perspective, they've satisfied all the board's questions and staff's questions as well. In which from the last meeting, the board did ask for myself to provide a draft decision, which I provided to the board. And if the board has any questions, comments on that as well, I'm happy to answer them, and I can also bring it up on the screen.
All right, so we can deliberate on that. So
Sure.
Public meeting. Why don't we, if there's no more public comment going last time, or staff comment or board comments or questions, can somebody make a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
By Mr. Geller. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Jemian? Any discussion? So Ms. Ross,
Yes,
Mr. Jemian,
Yes,
Mr. Geller?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. So the public hearing is closed. This is the time to discuss the decision letter and deliberate on the project. Has everybody had a chance to review Shane's decision letter? Do we want to have Shane walk us through it briefly? Just so that for the benefit of the public as well? If you wouldn't mind, Mr.
Sure,
O'Connell.
I'll go nice and quick. So I'll share each screen so each member of the public can see. But this is a draft decision, just kind of stating the facts. When hearing publications were, oh, Michael McDonald is actually entering the room as well, so he can participate. Just stating the hearing notices, hearing dates, when we received the application. Materials, plans, and exhibits provided to the board. Basic information about findings of facts that the board has reviewed as part of this application. Information about public letter, including the public comment that we did receive, as stated in the record as well. Information of surrounding land area, and as well as the applicant not requesting any waivers from this, area, these numbers of when the vote is actually going to be will be filled in after this meeting based on what the numbers are for the meeting for approval. But stating that the board finds that this application is in compliance with site plan review, section 10.6, and performance standards for larger projects, and the conditions of these approvals, which include no further waivers, sidewalks and walkways shall be cleared of snow, and if snow storage cannot be maintained on site, that the applicant trucks snow off-site. The development shall be constructed in compliance with the American Disabilities Act. Site plan approval will be binding with the landowner, applicant, and all successors. If any changes are made at the request of the agencies of board, that the applicant comes before for a modification hearing. Site lighting shall be downlighting and erected in a manner that prevents glare. Curb ramp shall be labeled on the plans to conform with ADA. The landscaping shall be denoted as on the site plan. The dumpster shall be screened. Approval of the application does not relieve the applicant from other responsibilities of other laws and permits, making sure that the infrastructure is correct and that any sidewalk along the property's frontage, if modified, cut, shall be replaced with the same material. Updated plans provided to the board and staff shall be reviewed to meet the conditions of the decision and placed on the plan. Daily cleanup of the site, including on soils and Jasmine Way from the entrance. Failure to comply may result in a revocation. Shall work with the DPW and staff for all utility work to be completed for the water and sewer in Jasmine Way, as the town will need information regarding a detour schedule if police details are required as well, and staff shall be notified prior to the work commencing for all the utility work. So as noted at the previous meetings, the applicant is working with the adjacent property owner and bringing sewer up Jasmine Way in the water line. So we just want to make note that if that's the case, that we're notified of said work, as well as DPW, and if detouring is necessitated, that there be police detail as well. So prior to the endorsement of plans, and I'm not going to go read over, I'm going to just kind of look at this, show the screen, making sure that stormwater runoff is shown and final plans are signed off by the board. Making sure that these rules and requirements are on the plans and that these approvals are valid for 2 years after the appeal. And I think I noted this in the 210 Broad decision, but just in a manner to help keep staff and the board informed in terms of process, as well as the applicant prior to construction, that the applicant shall come in for a pre-construction meeting, and that the engineer, contractor, and developer sign a receipt of acknowledgement, letting us know when the construction will be occurring, as well as an emergency number, and making sure that a copy of the approval shall be kept on site, and that the town engineer requires a deposit of $2,500 submitted prior to construction to ensure that his site inspection work is completed. A copy of the stormwater plan be provided to our department and town engineer prior to the issuance of a permit. Prior to an occupancy permit, then an as-built plan be given to staff for review. The applicant shall contact the board prior to requesting any occupancy permits, as well as to schedule an on-site project review to review the compliance of this decision, and delay in the action may delay the sign off of the occupancy permit. Stormwater improvements shall be in working order prior to CO. Upon the completion of the design of the sewer pump station, but no later prior to the occupancy, the applicant shall provide those calculations to the water and sewer superintendent. And then prior to the request of the final certificate of occupancy, that a statement comes from the applicant to DPW certifying that all conditions are made. And then post occupancy, making sure that everything conforms to town code and zoning enforcement, and then landscaping, fencing, and lighting shall be replaced for the duration of the use. So hope I didn't talk too much, but that's pretty much the gist of it. If the board has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Does the board have any questions for Shane? Are there any additional comments we'd like to consider or conditions? Anything we'd like to discuss about the project? And Shane, just to be clear, and Mr. Solari's on here and Mr. Rulli, that I went up there, that cul-de-sac, there's a fence there where it's paved, the binder. But that's gonna have to be adequate before we give any occupancy permits for the Jasmine Way residential. Is that correct?
Correct.
I would say that's correct, yes.
All right, any other discussion on this project? If there's no other discussion, we have a draft memo. Do we have a motion to approve? Or to not approve?
I'll make a motion to approve based on what the town planner has stated in terms of the conditions.
Do we have a second?
I can second that.
By Ms. Ross?
Yes.
So adopting, just for discussion, adopting the draft decision letter with no changes that was provided by Mr. O'Brien.
Right, that was my motion.
All right, so any other discussion? Mr. McDonald, are you going to vote on this?
Yeah, should be able to.
So Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes,
Mr. Jemian,
Yes,
Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You as well.
Thanks, you too.
All right, Shane. Shane, just a quick question. It's up to you, however you want to handle it.
We can take it out. We can take it out of order if you'd like.
We may have people on here for the
Oh, okay.
Boulevard bond.
Yes.
Do you want to take that out of order? Does that make sense? Or do you want to keep the order that we have?
No, it's
Because-
totally fine. We can take it out of order.
Well, you're gonna run with both of these 3 and 4. Is that better for you? Taking number 4 out of order?
Yes, that's totally fine.
All right, so so we're gonna, if the board is okay with it, we'll take item 4 out of order. This is the Scotland Boulevard surety bond reduction request. So I'll turn this over to you, Mr. O'Brien.
Sure thing. So we received a request recently regarding Scotland Boulevard Road Bond that Greg Tansey had reviewed. He provided us a letter on March 8th of the work that he has reviewed for the project. So let me just pull that up. So as you know, last August, I believe it was, we accepted a road bond from Scotland Boulevard of the amount of $421,895.87. The roadway has not been accepted as a public way. So the town is currently holding a balance, as well as Greg Tansey reviewing the work that's been done. The applicant has noted that the curbing work has been done recently. However, I have not gotten any additional information from Mr. Tansey regarding his review of said work. All I have is the work that has been provided to me from Mr. Tansey. So I can provide you a copy of his memo that notes the work that he has suggesting us to hold. So he's suggesting that we hold $7,590 of surety left, and that work is pertaining to the Cape Cod berm, cleanup and flush drains, police detail, an as-built survey and plan, as well as contingency money based on those numbers. The applicant has stated that Cape Cod berm work has been done. However, I do not have a letter from Mr. Tanzi stating that he has reviewed it or he is currently okay with the release of those monies. So at this time, I would be requesting, based on Mr. Tanzi's review, and to the board, that we hold $7,590 and release the rest of that monies to the applicant.
Shane, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
You sent some pictures over.
Yes.
One was a nice clean berm, and then the other one was a berm that looked like it was recently paved, but it was already broken the back half. Is
Okay.
that broken? And I asked you this, and I was, I know we had talked about it when you sent the pictures over, but is that the berm that's been replaced? There's a picture showing the berm.
Yeah, let me
looks-
pull up
It looks like there's
those pictures.
looks like
pictures
there's a, looks like there's a crack right down the whole thing.
I also have Jay Souza here on behalf of Parker Property Management, if he would like to answer some of those questions as well.
I can, Chair Driscoll, I sent, I should have sent 6 pictures over. The first 3 pictures, were of the old binder berm that was never done.
Well,
when
actually,
we-
can we bring those up, Shane? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yep.
I'll bring those up. I'll let Jay talk and then I'll bring them up.
Yeah, no problem. So the first 3 pictures I sent, you'll look and see it. And what it was the monolithic binder berm that was put down with the binder before they had paved. And then back in November when we paved, for whatever reason, they never paved the berm. So when Greg Tanzi met with us, he walked it, showed us what berm to put in, the 380 linear feet. And so what I do is I took before pictures and sent those first 3 are the before pictures, which it looks all rough. And then the last 3 pictures I sent were the after pictures of the new berm in place with the road and the completion of what Mr. Tanzi was looking for.
So let me pull that up quickly. All right, so this is the incomplete berm.
Yep.
As well as this one.
Can you make those pictures bigger, Shane, if possible?
Of
All right, so if you go back to where you were, the berm,
this one.
so Mr. Souza, that's before?
Yes, that was before. That's why you see all the sand and everything from over the winter. With the cones, what it is, we coned it off and then we cleaned it all up and then the paver came and cut it down and repaved
Now,
the berm to set it in.
Is that just a sand line or is that a crack through the middle?
No,
of it?
that's so what it is so that wavy line is the new pavement up against the old monolithic binder berm. So what we had to do is we had to cut that out and clean it up and then relay the berm in there. So that would be the other pictures of the new berm that you see. This is like the old berm. See how we had to cut it down and clean it out?
So actually, this is the before picture, right?
No, this is the after
This
picture.
is
This is
the
the brand new
after.
berm that goes all the way down the road now.
Okay.
And the one with all the sand and everything. I probably should have,
Why was,
I wasn't thinking, I probably should have waited till they blew it all off and then took the pictures with the sand because you can see it a little bit better.
why was that first one cut out again?
So what was that?
Can you go back, Shane?
This one.
No,
This one.
Why was that one cut out?
because what it was that was the old monolithic berm from the binder. They never put the new berm in when they paved in November.
Okay.
So what we had to do is in order to finish the berm with the guardrail and everything, we had to cut all it out and clean it up and then put the new berm in and bind and clean and mix, put the new berm in with a neater area.
And it looked like, I saw a picture of the cul-de-sac with the berm missing. Has that been replaced now?
Yes, so yeah, so my new pictures, it goes all the way down to all the way down and around. See where those cars are parked? That would be the entrance to that last lot that we have at the end.
Can you
It
keep
goes
going?
all the way down and stops there at the end of the guardrail.
Shane, can you keep going? Yeah, so
See,
is-
that was the, yeah, that was the old picture. I didn't take a new picture of it. I mean, I could always forward you one tomorrow. I can head down there and do it.
But the berm that was missing there is now there, is what you're saying?
Yep, yeah, it goes all the way down and ends where that last cone is. Because that's where the new driveway would start for the cul-de-sac and would have to be done when the rest of the road, I mean, when that driveway gets done.
So that's the monies that Greg noted that we would be holding as part of this.
Any board questions or discussion? Any other town staff questions or comments?
No, I provided the memo, kind of just stating that the board should hold up to $7,590 of the amount of money that we held. So I believe it was 400 at this time. It's the balance of 454,000. But I'll have to confirm with accounting.
Yeah, it's like 456, 14, 16 cents.
Okay, either or, I would request that the board release those funds and hold $7,590 within that bond.
Should somebody make a motion and just say release all the bond except for 7,000, whatever it was?
590.
So do we have a, there's no more discussion, do we have a motion from the board?
So moved. I'll make a motion to release the funds except for $7,590 to be retained.
And it's roughly around 456,000 total, minus 7,500, Shane.
The amount that's gonna be refunded to the developer will be $448,424.16.
Plus any interest.
I'll have to confirm that number. I know Greg provided a memo on his assumption of the accounting bond increase. My bond numbers, I think, are from January. So I'll have to confirm either or we would be keeping.
Yeah, that number-
7,590.
So that number plus interest minus 7,590, right?
Correct.
Mr. Geller made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
By Mr. McDonald. Any discussion? Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
yes,
Mr. Geller,
Yes,
Mr. Jimmy,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Souza.
Thank you very much for taking me out of order. And Shane, I just have to put a letter in for the next one after Mr. Tanzi sees the street for the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
just make sure
perfect.
you do the rest of the work and you never have to see us again.
Yep, not a problem at all. I
Alrighty.
appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so Shane, we'll go back to item 3. This is the
Sure
planning
thing.
board subdivision rules and regulations amendments,
Sure
Okay.
thing.
public meeting. A red line version of amendments are available and there's a link. You can view this under the 2022, 2023 planning board agenda items and subdivision rules and regulations. So, Mr. O'Brien, you've been working on this for a while and you have a presentation, so why don't you take over?
Sure. I don't want to take up too much of the board's time. I know we've been working on this probably since November of last year, maybe even before then. One of the first things that I kind of looked at during my time here, and it's almost been a year, is that looking at our subdivision rules and regulations and making sure that it complies with both our zoning ordinances, the goals of the planning board. I know we have done some work with the master plan. I know there's been some zoning recodification, as well as just getting to know you guys, kind of learning your tendencies in terms of, as well as kind of from my own professional experience, in order to kind of improve certain projects that will come before us from a subdivision perspective, as well as you will see certain site plans and special permits as well. So I provided each of the board members a copy of this presentation, as well as it is online at the link on the agenda under subdivision rules and regulations for 2022 and 2023, as well as a red line version. I'm not going to go through that entire red line version because it's torture. It's 180 pages of a lot of documentation, but if anyone would like to read along as well, I kind of summarized it in a presentation format. So I just kind of want to discuss each of the changes I've made to the rules and regulations. Some are touching up some things, some of them are adding things, deleting some things, as well as just some Scrivener's errors that have existed since the last update to the rules and regulations, which some of the board members here were part of in 2018. It doesn't seem that long ago, but 2018 was 5 years ago. So figure that these rules and regulations need some updating, and as well as we noted from previous rules and regulations discussions that we've kind of kept on the agenda, that there's probably an opportunity in the future the next couple of months to come back and look at some of the 40-foot layouts that we have for right of way, and we'll have some discussions about that too. And I'm hoping tonight to seek the approval of these amendments with a board vote, as well as get some public feedback through this process. So the highlights of these changes include the fee schedule, adding some definitions, some updates to filing procedures, changes made to with DPW to reflect some current stormwater regulations, a review process for homeowners association documents, water and sewer impact statements, street tree changes, enhancements, as well as some other changes, just to provide some better clarification for the board, staff, and applicants alike. Because it's from my perspective, it's important that we're aware as staff of some of these changes for the benefit of the town, as well as the board, as well as people coming in who we're telling to look over these subdivision rules and regulations and kind of absorb them and kind of teach them that we kind of expect a little more, and these are our expectations moving forward for these changes. So one of the items that through this process I looked at was the adjustment of filing fees to better reflect these changes to the recodification, the zoning bylaws to the zoning ordinances, as well as projects that are appearing before the board. So previously, our fee schedule really focused for site plan review for the amount of square footage of impervious surface created for projects. And that's fine to an extent, and we do keep that notion of maintaining a cost for impervious surface. However, it does beg a question of the building size as well. And that really, with our current fee schedule, focused on special permits, whereas we've seen a lot of site plan reviews come before us looking at building size, but not really a consideration in terms of cost of the fee. It's more so the parking lot. So we've received more site plan review projects than projects that solely require special permits. And I'm hoping that the board kind of accepts some of these changes to reflect those changes. So as of currently, we accept $500 for a modification for a minor site plan, as well as for major site plan based on our zoning ordinances, $1,000 for the creation of impervious surface, and goes up to $2,000 for anything greater than 50,000, which require that $2,500 professional review fee. And then a special permit modification, it'd be $800 plus 25 cents per square foot over 20,000 square feet of gross building area, as well as a fee and $500 for modification. I don't really touch up on preliminary subdivision, definitive subdivision plans, as well as amendments for subdivisions themselves. These fee schedules are really reflective on the nature of site plans, as well as some additional items that we've added through the zoning recodification. So what I've done is that for the fee schedule, and I know throughout a lot of the time, staff is the ones kind of collecting fees and reviewing fees, and the board really doesn't have any direction on fees until someone doesn't pay them or someone's requesting a waiver from them, which is never a moment that the board really wants to handle. But in terms of a minor site plan, we'll be still looking for that $500 for any modification of an existing building, an approved site plan, as well as adding Dover Amendment uses, Section 3 uses, the creation of a parking lot of up to 10,000 square feet of impervious surface, expansion of an existing building, or a new minor site plan which creates no impervious surface, as well as a change in use. As noted, part of this impervious surface discussion, as well as I noted through the zoning or as noted through the zoning recodification process, the planning board with site plan review has jurisdiction over parking lots as well as construction alterations and I think expansions of buildings. So I've actually created two systems here, one of which includes through major site plan review for the creation of a parking lot, as well as an additional fee. So these would all be combined. It's just more like adding an addition symbol. It still kind of equals out to the same basic numbers that we would have, but it's noting that parking lot construction is part of this major site plan review per the zoning ordinance, as well as new construction expansion of municipal, institutional, commercial, industrial, and residential structure with 2 or more dwelling units. So that'd be $1,000 for up to 10,000 gross square feet, 1,500 for 10,000 to 2,500, 2,000 for over 2,500 gross square feet, plus 6 cents per square foot of gross building area. I know that at the last meeting, Pat, you did note that you wanted to, I think I was calling it something different. I forget what I was calling it. Is it gross? Was it either or? It's under gross building area now, and I've adjusted it. The special permits, rather than be based on a square footage, because we did handle some, we did get into a funky situation a couple months ago with 210 Broad Street, where it was an $800 permit, and we do have more additional abilities, and based on the zoning recodification, a lot of applicants will probably be coming in with special permits that really don't pertain to an increase in square footage, but rather, you know, off-site parking or other items like that. So with more special permits, we're going to have a number for $800 for special permits, which doesn't change. But for the ease of kind of addition, if someone's requesting additional special permits, have $200 for any subsequent special permit after the first special permit. And then $500 for any modification. Everything else with the subdivisions, definitive subdivision costs remain the same, but I am adding a extension of time for site plan reviews, as well as special permits for $200. And then I just want to know, as part of these changes, that the professional review fee constitutes a review of the subdivision, the town engineer performing the plan review, and that there is also a professional review fee that is required for inspections that's required prior to constructions. We did get into some situations where we would get to a pre-construction meeting and ask prior to a building permit, someone's surprised that they're going to have to pay $2,500 for the inspection review. So just having it as part of these fee schedule and these rules and regulations irons it out a little bit easier for us. In terms of definitions, I've added some additional definitions to this subdivision rules and regulations. So what I've added, here's the red line version, fixed and added fixed definitions for agent, applicant, as-built plan, CBU, certified lot building area, low impact development, Mass DP, porous pavement. I've renamed to pervious pavement, registered mail, stormwater runoff, streets with the addition of industrial, streets, subdivision, surety, and zoning bylaw to zoning ordinances, and as well as adding definitions for certified mail, CMR, complete streets, open space, parcels, shallow, and stabilization.
Shane, can I ask you a question on open space?
Sure.
So I think if you read our open space ordinance,
Mhm.
it's for, I think we should probably remove active recreation.
Oh, in regards to,
Well, it says such open spaces to be used for passive. I think if you look at our zoning, the open space should be used for passive recreation, agriculture, forestry, scenic vistas. The reason I worry about active is then I have an issue, maybe with some open space, we have dirt bikes and stuff like it. I think we're better off to say just passive, you know what I mean?
all right, so as part of this, I guess, review, would you be acceptable to removal of the words or active, and just is to be used for passive recreation?
Yeah, I think that would better line up with the zoning of the open space development too.
Okay, I'll note that. All right. Apologies, I don't want to make everyone.
Unless somebody else has another opinion, that's all.
Sure. And I'm happy to take comments and questions. I don't want to talk too much. I know I just probably bored everyone through the fee schedule discussion. I'll try to kind of speed it up. So this is kind of a red line version of the definitions as provided. Some minor changes, and nothing to, just to note, that we're a complete streets community, and that, applicants should follow a process of looking at complete streets as well as, differentiating the definition of certified mail and what was the other type of mail that we have? I think parcel mail. Registered mail, I apologize. Because there's a difference between certified and registered mail, and we just noted in our previous rules and regulations as registered mail is registered or certified mail. As Pat noted, open space. I know we've gotten into some situations where we have a subdivision and we receive a parcel, or the applicant wants to give a parcel to the town. We just want to make sure that it's noted that parcel is to be used as open space, that it denotes that open space is based on our definitions. And I think the other major one here is adding the definition of parcel, working on providing a definition for a sharrow, stabilization, as well as industrial roadways, which I would define as a roadway that would receive and distribute traffic from an industrial area, because we do know within our subdivision rules and regulations, industrial subdivisions as well as industrial roadways. So here's a simple one. I'll keep it short and sweet on this one for filing procedure. Currently in our rules and regulations, there's a statement that says the planning board may require an applicant provide evidence of ownership and authority to represent or representative on behalf, so for someone to act on behalf of an owner. I would like to change that to shall, so it doesn't become permissible. It becomes an action that someone shall take. And I know I've had this discussion before too. We do define what a shall, a may, and a should is in our subdivision rules and regulations. So when an applicant sees the words shall, may, and should, it's noted on what type of actions that it should be taken. So that's as part of the filing procedure. As well as note the stormwater maintenance fee. I know for a lot of road bonds, we've kind of asked for a stormwater maintenance fee for certain applications that are tied into the road bond. So we just want to note what that fee is, and as part of it, allow for determination for DPW to make that determination of what the cost of that stormwater maintenance fee, that it would be probably based on projects, because I know in the past we kind of based it on a flat rate, and each project's different. So we would kind of have asked the board to be kind of, cognizant of DPW's review of it and what the cost would be for maintenance of those structures. So in terms of homeowners associations, I know most of the projects that we're probably going to see before us are going to have some sort of homeowners association, as well as I believe we require, unless someone's going to come in with some sort of maintenance agreement, most of these subdivisions are coming with homeowners associations. That we ask that no CO shall be issued for any lot that requires an HOA, as well as proof of recording of said document, and that we ask that the board and staff may review on behalf of town council. I also just remembered what you said right now, Pat, about the trees. Let me go ahead to the trees, because I know we have people here talking about the trees. So I just wanted to know, in terms of, I know we have a tree committee now, or we're in the process of establishing, a better shade tree ordinance, as well as a review process for trees. I just want to make sure that what my goal is here is not for shade trees. I'm looking more primarily for streets within the right of way. So part of this is to redefine what shade trees are, or eliminate the item shade trees and replace them with street trees, as we do note them as street trees. And these trees shall be planted within the right of way which are typically in our 40-foot intervals. So one of the notes that I had here is this is currently our list of, oh, actually, no, this is the list that I have looked to add. So these are trees that we currently, or we want to have not be planted as street trees. What I've added is the crabapple and the flowering pear. They were previously in the tree list that we would like to see planted. However, just kind of based on the quality of both types of trees, I would say that we wouldn't want to see them as street trees, or they wouldn't really flourish in most environments, as well as, you know, as our current rules and regulations state already, evergreen trees are not to be planted as street trees. And then the following species are to be recommended for planting as street trees. I just want to note the changes that have occurred from our current rules and regulations. The only tree that I have added is the gray birch, as well as make some changes to the honey locust, which would ask for that if a honey locust were to be provided, is that it be thornless, fruitless species only, as well as the ginkgo tree be male only. Everything else is what exists.
Shane, can I interrupt you for a second here?
You may.
In fact, there are, as I made you aware, the Bridgewater Improvement Association has been active for decades in terms of planting trees and flowers and so forth around town. And I did mention it to them that they have obviously a real interest in what we put down in terms of accepted or non-accepted trees. And there's also a subcommittee of the tree committee right now working on this particular item. I would just ask that you open up to some of the public that are here now to have them give their thoughts on some of these trees that you have either for or against putting in.
Sure. And yeah, I just want to note the additions that I've made are solely the gray birch, and then the removal of the crabapple and the flowering pale as recommended street trees to trees that we wouldn't allow. So for everything else, this is what the board has been operating for the last 5 years. So, but I'm happy to take any public feedback or answer any comments, and we can kind of, if you want, we can take a quick intermission on my discussion and we can go from there. Or I'll let Bob take I'll actually let Bob take the floor quickly.
So I think just as a point of order that I've shared with Bill Malpe, the tree ordinance that I had been part of in Warren, which was fairly comprehensive. So I think with respect to if that ordinance in whole or in part is accepted and approved, you're going to be addressing within that document trees that are approved, which would supersede anything that is in the subdivision regulation. So I guess I'm saying it might be premature to get too deep into the species that are going to be in the subdivision regulations that might be in conflict with what's finally in the ordinance.
Yeah, and just to note too, these are just the street trees, and then there's a note within the subdivision rules and regulations about shade trees, which I feel would be, feel like is going to be very important, I think, as part of this discussion.
But the Shannon, Bob, you know, and I'm excited we're gonna have a tree ordinance, but in the near term, we can get rid of these problem trees, so to speak. Especially the crabapple that we've had a lot of issues with. You have no issue with that, correct, Bob?
Yeah, no, I think the trees that you're eliminating, I have zero issue with. I think just, you know, again, understanding there's a difference between street trees and shade trees. It just.
But I think Ray had a good.
I would just,
if we
I
have-
understand what you're saying, Bob. I would just ask that anybody that has an opinion on trees be allowed simply to say it right now. If you-
Sure. Yep.
We can maybe throw it into the ordinance or someplace, that's all. I'm not sure if they do, but if they do, that's all.
Let's do that then. So anybody from the public, we can open to the public at this point. The public, the board, anybody that would like to make a comment on trees. I see Mrs. Neri.
Or anything I spoke of too. I'm happy to talk about anything.
Hello,
Hello.
Pat Neri. I drive. Excuse me. I am a member of the tree committee or the sub-tree committee, and we are working on a list, but I wanted to mention that the current thinking, the current trend, and I suspect most of you are aware that the thoughts are to replace or plant trees that are native and keystone species. And that's primarily what I hope will ultimately be the list that we can use in town. Hopefully we'll go through that list that was lifted from Framingham and combine it with ours, the existing list, and find an acceptable group that you folks might be comfortable with. I suspect that'll happen pretty soon, that we'll finalize our list, because we want to look at native, keystone, national grid acceptable, things of that nature. So there's a little bit of work to be done, but hopefully you folks will be okay with it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody else from the public that would like to speak? But I think what Mrs. Neary said, Shane, and what Bob said is great. And we can certainly hold another meeting relatively easily to again update these. But I think the point of this right now is because we don't have that complete list. That really is just to make sure that, you know, we know that the pear has been a problem. They're not native, they break, they reproduce a lot. I know we've been trying to get rid of those for a while, so just at least getting rid of that as some of these other problem trees, I think now is a good step to eliminate and then adopt a new list once it's developed.
I would agree. So I'm happy with eliminating the gray birch that I added, and then just kind of keep the maintain the existing tree list that we have, with the exception of the flowering pear and the crabapple, and put them in prohibited trees.
Dr. Hunt had a comment. Go ahead, Dr. Hunt.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a little bit of a novice on this kind of thing, and you use the terms street tree and the term shade tree. Can you please give me a clear definition of the difference between the two?
I would say that all our street trees are shade trees, or they should be shade trees. The difference is their shade trees are by definition trees that you would expect to see on people's property, whereas the right of way isn't necessarily owned by a private property owner. It's in the right of way of the street. So when we do a right of way, or we look at our designs of our right of way, it's designed typically 40 feet. We'll have 12 feet of roadway, and depending on the size of a project, you could have bike lanes, curbing, Cape Cod berm, a grass strip, and the expectation is on that grass strip, you would have these trees. So it wouldn't be on private property, though we do ask as part of our subdivision rules and regulations that the expectation for each lot on a subdivision has some sort of shade tree. The expectation, I would say, with this planning board and what I consider these types of trees that we're looking at, be within the right of way. And the expectation, and I know I stated this to Ray earlier, is that I would hope that looking at these shade trees in the future that are on the private property, as well as through site plans and special permits, that we would look to the guidance of a list based on the tree subcommittee.
So a quick follow-up. So what you're saying is a street tree probably shouldn't be a full reach tree. So a street tree has some control about the size of the top of the tree and that kind of thing. Is that the purpose?
It's for size, it's for aesthetics. In some communities, there are concerns of street trees for power lines. We're fortunate here that we require that for all new subdivisions that power lines or electric utilities be placed underground, so you don't really get into that issue as much. But there, you see certain projects where there's electric easements through properties. So I would say that even through this process, that when we look at certain subdivisions and certain types of street trees, we have some sort of idea that certain street trees aren't going to work for certain projects. And we're hoping that applicants are aware of this. But just in terms of compiling a basic list, it allows for an applicant to kind of pick from, as well as the board to kind of give guidance to say, these are the expectations of trees, whether your subdivision is looking to be more aesthetically pleasing or looking for trees that are going to, grow to be sizable or to be relatively smaller through over the course of 5, 10, 20 years.
Thank you.
No problem. I think Pat has her hand up again.
Thank you. I just had one comment, Shane. I see you have the ginkgo on the list.
Yes.
And that doesn't support any pollinators. It's not native at all. So I wonder why you want to include that.
I would say that it's currently on the list, and that my recommendation was to add that if there were going to be ginkgos, that they be male only, so they wouldn't allow for pollination for adjacent ginkgo female trees.
Do we have to have a ginkgo at all?
I just put it on there because it's currently a list. The only things I took off that list were the crabapple or the flowering pear.
Right.
But I'll leave it up to the board to kind of make that determination.
Okay,
So based on the tree list, as you noted earlier, the Framingham list
right.
that I kind of looked at in my previous work, it does mention the ginkgo tree, male only, as a allowed tree. So
So that's why it's there. Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Any other public comment at this point? Do we have any board comment at this point? Do we have any discussion on the document that Shane provided?
I'm happy to speed through the rest of the presentation. I'm sorry. It's been an hour, but not a total hour, but I'll go through those quickly. I'll head back to the previous.
And what we can do at the end of your presentation, open it back up for comment.
Sure, that's any if anyone wants to jump in, that's totally fine. One of the things I placed within these, and this is kind of a point of, I wouldn't say point of contention, but a point of discussion over the course of last year, especially with the drought, in terms of an applicant coming in and doing their due diligence in terms of water and sewer impact statements. An applicant shall coordinate with DPW as to determine adequacy of water and wastewater in the town. So the applicant, whether they're looking at public services or private services, provide us a water distribution impact statement and a sewer disposal impact statement, discussing the project's demand to serve each lot, or whether they can look to do private wells and the suitability of soils to do so, as well as perk tests for both septic and for private wells, and discussing the project's impact on the wastewater of the effects on the wastewater treatment facility. So that would be an expectation that we would add to our current rules and regulations. For landscaping bonds, not changing much except adding a sentence stating that a landscaping bond shall be secured prior to the certificate of occupancy of the first unit. We don't want to get into a situation where, it's winter time and someone's looking for a CO. We want to have the ability to acquire said landscaping bond prior to that first certificate of occupancy, as the developer will still probably be in the game at that point and will be able to get an amount of funds that will allow for them to come back and do the actual landscaping, as well as maintain said landscaping. quick addition to waivers, just making sure that if someone's requesting waivers on utilities, that they be placed underground unless otherwise waived by the board based on our subsection B. Changing and amending the term cleanup. So right now it says before the sale of any lot, the applicant shall clean up any debris caused by street construction, installation of utilities. We don't really have a means to make a determination when a sale of a lot is. However, we do have the ability to hold up a certificate of occupancy based on debris and trash around a site. So I'm hoping that the board finds that acceptable, as well as a subdivision identification sign. Currently, it states that a developer shall install a sign for marketing purposes and shall be removed prior to street acceptance. As we know, that not all roads are to be accepted by the town. So I would add that for streets that are to remain private, they shall be removed prior to the occupancy of the final house. A note within our current rules, as well as the zoning recodification, it notes the site plan review and a design review based on the East Gateway district of the town. What I would note that it doesn't really pertain to the subdivision rules and regulations too much, but I want to make note that there is a design review, and that to see this planning board design review guidelines, it's a separate document. So it refers, so both of these items refer to documents that are in a physical format and online, but not necessarily should be in this, because it would add 20 or 30 or 40 more pages. That's not necessitated. Having discussions with DPW regarding streets and other design requirements, making sure that our stormwater fee complies and that they have the ability to make those changes. Through design standards for stormwater drainage, the removal of the rational method for on-site drainage, as recommended from Greg Tansey. The 5-year storms to 2-year storms, maintenance of areas shall be borne by the developer. Drain line cover shall be installed at 3 feet to avoid frost penetration rather than 3 and 6, as well as making sure that our structural practices for water quality and BMPs reflect our current stormwater ordinance and regulations, as those came into effect in 2019, and the 2018 rules and regulations does not note the current stormwater ordinance. Oh, and as well as a recommendation from our DPW director for subdivisions for fewer homes, that the length of the cul-de-sac shall not exceed 750 feet. That was just added based on the last discussion I had with DPW. So look, I think they're looking to have that as part of these new rules and regulations.
Dan, somehow, when we voted on that 1 to 4 lot subdivision, it was in
Yes.
there.
Mhm.
And then the final version came out, it wasn't. So I think that, I don't know. I know Ray was in the board in 2018. Maybe Michael, like, I don't think Steve was, but maybe he was. I just, that 1 to 4 was always supposed to be 750.
Okay, so I guess it wasn't added then, but all I can say is that the red line version that I've provided to the board and the changes made, with the exception of anything that's could be conditionally approved, or any changes that the board would make, I could add as well. But I just want to note that what I have given you is what I expect to be placed on there, and nothing is going to be added afterwards because it's not allowed. So just making sure that that's included as well. In terms of roadway layouts, talking with the zoo and Greg Tansey about this, us as staff aren't satisfied with our current roadway layouts, as they're all over the place, and it doesn't really give a strong direction of proper granite curbing or precast curbing or any kind of curbing, as well as we require bike lanes for a lot of our subdivisions, but I've not seen one within the town. Whereas there's an opportunity to have sharrows where everyone can share the road. So this is still an ongoing discussion with DPW. So I'm not going to be making any changes to roadway layouts at this time. we're gonna have to redesign and kind of go a little deeper into these discussions with Greg and his engineering team. So the red line rules and regulations are available as noted on the agenda under our subdivision rules and regulations update. Haven't touched it since I believe since I haven't touched it since it was sent. So I'm not going to go through the entire document, but I've noted the major highlights. I've sent it along to the board as well as have it accessible to the public, and I'm happy to answer any questions, provide any comments, or just kind of have any basic discussions about our subdivision rules and regulations from, I guess, my perspective.
Board questions? Mr. Chairman? Thoughts?
I just like to commend Shane for putting the potential changes into effect. It looks like they were the changes he's recommending are needed and fairly straightforward. Did a good job.
Right, I think the goal is tonight is once, we'll adopt this tree list now, getting rid of the problems if we decide to as a board, right? And then once you group with Bob and Shane and Bill Maltby come back with some sort of an ordinance, we can get that tree list in our rules and regs to line up with that as well. Is that the plan?
I think if you give us another month, that we probably should be able to come up with something.
But I guess my question to you is, for tonight, we have all these other changes we want to adopt. Are you okay with just getting rid of those couple of problem trees? Then when you have a new list in a month, 2 months, 6 weeks, whatever it may be, we can hold another public meeting like this to adopt that list. Are you saying we should wait on everything?
As long as we can come back with the tree side of it, then I have no problem approving the rest of it.
Yeah, I think.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chairman, you're gonna have to come back for the roadway layout anyways. So, I
Right.
mean, I don't think it's a closed book. I'll echo what Mr. Jamian said. I think that, Shane has put a lot of effort into this, and it's consistent with some of the other things that we're trying to put in place to streamline the process, to have it be predictable. I still think that the council needs to consider a home rule petition for impact fees. I mean, some of that would be for larger developments, but in the event that we have another large subdivision coming in, I think impact fees would be appropriate to be on the table there to, address some of these things. And then, I've got, from my past experience, with respect to roads and stormwater, some concerns with, meeting what stormwater requirements are given, where we are with respect to climate change.
Okay, so Shane, just so we're all clear, the open space, are you okay for now removing? Are we okay with removing act? My whole thing is, if you look at the definition of active open space,
Mhm.
that typically requires a lot of, infrastructure to be placed on a site or development of a site to accommodate that active.
Yeah, I would assume you're thinking of like baseball field or soccer field, where you're looking at certain infrastructure that really it becomes more of a man-made park than what the intent of open space is.
I guess if the intent of open space is to keep, natural vegetation, greenery, you want to allow things like walking, biking, trails,
Yeah, it's often land that the developer doesn't want to put a house on because it doesn't suit a house.
So I would, for now, unless we can come back with something or a reason why we want to add it back, I'd like to see.
I'm happy to make it just a condition of approval to remove the words "or active," and to Ray's point, the removal of the gray birch from the list.
Yeah, tree.
Yes, and then maintain everything else in terms of the list that I've provided.
Okay. Any further discussion or amendments you'd like to see made on this by anybody else on the board? Just keep in mind, we'll be probably having another meeting in a month, 6 weeks to discuss road layout, trees, and anything maybe Shane finds that he forgot, so we can open this back up, but for this evening, what we had before us, does anybody have any comments on? Last chance for public comment on this until we come back with the road layout and the tree list. Okay, do we have a motion to adopt the rules and regulation changes that have been presented by Mr. O'Brien with the couple of minutes we just discussed, the active recreation being removed and a few of those trees?
So moved.
Mr. Gallo, do a second?
I'll second it with the idea what you just said, Mr. Chairman, that we're going to come back to discuss the trees and the road layout.
Yeah, I think that's important, so two important things. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Gallo, second by Mr. Jamie. Any discussion from the board? And Mr. Brian, you have the amendments you want?
Yes, the amendments include the removal of gray birch from the preferred list, as well as the removal of the two words "or active" from the definition of open space.
Okay, and I don't have that list in front of me, the red line version. I clicked off it, but the Bradford has already been taken, correct? That's in the
It would be any flowering pear would be removed, so that would include all pear or all flowering pears, as well as crabapple trees. So all the trees that are currently the flowering pear and the crabapple, which are currently permitted in our rules and regulations, they would be placed in the not permitted.
All right. And I think Mr. Neary's comments about being native and choose another term that I'm not familiar with, and they can't remember, that might be good to consider in the future, so.
Yeah, did not consider Japanese knotwood.
So we have a motion, a second, any more discussion? Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Jemian,
Yes,
Mr. McDonald, you still there? I can't see it. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And I'm a yes. Okay. Thank you for all your time on that, Shane.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the
Thank you, Shane.
process, and I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, great job.
Thanks. Oh, just I guess as part of this, I guess I should say, I guess these rules and regulations will come into effect in, I guess as of, if it's appropriate, April 3rd,
Okay.
or as of now, I guess, whatever. So I think the only adjustment that we're going to probably have to take on, and I'll work with Nicole on this, from our office, is through Permitize in terms of the fee scheduling, because our current applications would have to have, I guess, a change in the fees. So we'll be working on that, but we'll hope to get those online sometime in April. But,
So any new application that we accept will follow this.
that is correct. So anything that's been in the pipeline now,
Will stay as is.
correct, and then anything, I would say, I don't expect to get anything, I guess, after this approval.
Oh, what I'm saying is anything in your office that's already been submitted will follow the old rules. Anything
Correct, everything, yeah, everything's grandfathered in.
Anything submitted tomorrow after follows these rules, correct?
Sure.
All right, so you have, on the agenda, Shane, you have an update on minutes? Do you have something to discuss?
Yeah, we're a little behind on minutes. Nicole in our office has been doing an exceptional job. She's been watching these meetings after I experienced them, but I just want to kind of make some updates to her minutes. As well as I did provide some executive session meeting minutes a couple meetings ago. And I noted that all the minutes in that package were from a December meeting. What I'm going to have to do is go back before the board, probably in at the April 19th meeting, and add the additional meetings that those were tied to, because I guess I didn't realize that it was all the meetings that were of executive session for the solar array were packaged together. And I only noted one meeting as part of that board meeting. So I'll be coming back. You'll see a package of executive session minutes, but I'll have to note the correct dates, just so.
And there's
My-
nothing in the packet for us to vote on tonight, so you just. need to go-
No, I just wanted to provide an update on some upcoming minutes. So if you see 4 or 5 sets of minutes for the 19th or the meeting after, don't be too scared. It's designed that way.
Okay,
So-
any board or subcommittee reports?
I'll give you a quick update on tree committee. Nicole Holmes, who is also on the open space, and I had a meeting today with the representative from DCR on Bridgewater becoming a tree city again after 30 years. And the possibility of it happening this year is good. There are basically 4 requirements. We essentially have met 3 of them. The last one is having Arbor Day celebrations at the end of April, which we're going to start now, and having the council adopt a proclamation about Arbor Day. So in effect, I think by sometime in the fall, we will officially become a tree city. So
Awesome.
Great. Thanks for all your work on that, Ray, and everybody else on the tree committee that's on this meeting. So I think it's great.
Cole Holmes did all the work, not me.
Ray, I'll just add that Warren ordinance came from a tree city community.
There
you go.
Well, I'll add, and I gave Bob an update today, and I think Dr. Hunt's on the meeting still. We had a CPC meeting last Wednesday. Obviously, I'm on the CPC as a representative of the planning board. We can, basically we had that normal meeting, but the 2 major issues, we're considering purchasing 2 lots next to the Imperial Kitchen, between the Imperial Kitchen and the Styles and Hart property. We didn't vote on it. We asked the town manager. We really don't have much information on it. We know that the town is considering it for parking. It's the site with the billboards on it. The elevation drops off pretty drastically, not too far in off of Route 18. So what we've asked the town manager for was to have engineering look at it, to see if it fits with the overall master plan of Styles and Hart, to see if it's adequate for parking, to see if the wetlands impede anything, and to see if it is worth, value, if it's a value to the town to add it to that piece of land, the Styles and Hart project. We're hoping that we get a report from one of our town engineers, or I guess I have found out that there is a master plan somewhere today. I heard there is an independent firm working on that site. So once we get that info, we can maybe make a decision on that. The other thing with CPC that we talked about was the budget. Carlton, Dr. Hunt, and Ms. Gasconi spent a lot of time on the budget. We had a lot of discussion on it, and we tabled that as well to make some adjustments to that. So that's what's going on in CPC. Any other board reports? Mr. O'Brien, you've talked a lot tonight and gave us a lot of reports. Do you have any planners report?
I'll just do is keep it brief, but I've lied about that before. We don't have a meeting next Wednesday due to Passover. We have one meeting in April 19th. I will see you guys then, but you know where to find me if you need me anytime before then. I'm hoping to have just 146, the Winter Street item on that agenda. Then go from there.
But Shane, since we last met on that, they're gonna have to make some major adjustments to that, you believe?
I've seen some adjusted plans on that project, so as soon as I get them, I shall send them over your guys' way for review comments and for the next public meeting.
Is anybody else not going to be able to attend? There's a very good chance that I have to be at a conference that night on the 19th. Just to make sure we still have quorum, is there anybody else that will not be able to make the meeting on the 19th?
Let me see.
And if I cannot make it, Mr. McDonald, you okay with running the meeting?
Julia,
No problem. I won't do what I've done in the past and give you little to no notice. I should know a week ahead of time, so. But it looks,
Mr. Driscoll, are you going to be in a location that you can't participate remotely?
most likely, yes.
So there's cocktails involved at this meeting.
It's a conference.
It's
So-
poor service, Bob. It's poor Wi-Fi. He doesn't want to use his data.
Mr. Chair, it's a good thing you brought that up. Unfortunately, I will not be in attendance on the 19th myself.
I can keep you in the loop. I may be able to log in.
Oh, now that Steve can't go, you can.
I can't, I just want to be fair to the developer if we, we've already opened the meeting. We could do the Mullen rule with a couple of people. So let's just keep this line of communication open. So
Sure.
don't-
Yeah, I'll just keep me in the loop.
if there's something that I can do, I'll attend if Steve can. And if Michael's
Okay.
in the meeting and maybe you're Astrid or Ted could hop in the meeting, we'll figure it out.
Sounds good.
Just to keep it moving for them, because our next meeting's not till May 3rd, correct?
That's correct.
Any other comments? I know there's some members of the public here before we wrap up. Is there any public comment? If there's no public comment, no staff comment, and no board comment, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Before you do that, Mr. Driscoll, I just, you and I discussed this morning and I spoke to the manager. I mean, there is a workshop on downtown revitalization and MBTA communities on April 11th. If members of the planning board or other members of the public are planning to attend, I think getting somewhat of an idea on the head count is going to dictate whether or not we have to move to a larger room it's being held at Bridgewater State. It is a workshop. There's no public comment, but there might be public interest. But if in fact there are a number of members of the public or from different boards that are planning to attend, communicating that in the near term so we can make necessary adjustments to make sure we have adequate space would be helpful.
person only, or is there remote access possible?
It's not going to be streamed. It will be recorded, but it will not be streamed live.
Okay,
What time of day will it be?
I believe it begins at 6:30, Ray. It is posted.
Yeah, I'll be there, Bob. I mean, that's, I have it in my calendar. That's Tuesday, the 11th, so I'll be there.
I'll try also.
I don't have anything else.
Great.
And who's taking the count, Bob?
I would say let the manager's office know.
Okay, thank you.
Again, this is a meeting on downtown revitalization, so. All right, if there's no other comments, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
By Mr. Jimmy, do we have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Geller? Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Rojas?
Yes.
Mr. Geller?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy?
Yes.
McDonald?
yes.
And I'll vote yes, but was I choppy tonight or could you hear me better?
You're a lot
Somewhat
better.
choppy.
A little choppy?
Yes.
Oh, God. I spend like 20 minutes before every meeting testing my mic now, so, all right.
Take it easy.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.